All right, welcome everyone. So this is my All Will Be One historic Pauper and Explorer Pauper review. Let's get right into it. So Hex Gold Slash, 1 mana, 2 damage. Okay, this is fine. 1 mana red removal. I don't think there are too many creatures with toxic, so unless there's some really pushed toxic common, um I don't think this will see play. We just got a new removal from Explorer Anthology 2 in red, so I don't think this will play. Udota Crack Tackler, 2 in a red, trample +6 where all right, so this is the problem with new sets. Like, this looks like a reasonable card, but I don't think there'll be enough of a um, enough permanence with oil counters in just one set. Maybe in a couple sets when there are more cards with oil counters printed on them. Molten Rebuke 4/5. Okay, this is a 5 mana draft removal. We can skip that. It won't see play. Sawblade Scamp, 1 mana haste. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put non-creature spell, put a oil counter. Move an oil counter. Wow. Yeah, this is pretty good, I think. So, um, 1 mana, 1/1 haste. It gets in for 1 damage, and then next turn, presumably you're playing like a lightning strike or something. They can just tap to get through blockers. Um, yeah, this looks like a reasonable card in red burn for sure. I'll give it a B. I'll give it a B. Um, Shrapnel Slinger, 1 in a red, artifact creature. May sacrifice a creature if you destroy target artifact. Um, Interesting. I like it because it's a reasonable um anti-artifact card. I don't know if we necessarily need it. It could be a sideboard against Affinity, um, where you can kill their Mirror Enforcer. Yeah, it's probably a sideboard C. Sideboard C. Thrill of Possibility. Okay, this is a reprint. That's all right. It's a nice card. Volt Charge, 2 in a red, 3 damage to any target. Proliferate. Okay, interesting. So Proliferate in red. I think this is a first of its effect. Um, so I have to assume that's probably pretty good right away. Um, 3 mana to deal 3 isn't the best. However, red does get access to Goblin and Narcomancer and the Goblin Electromancer, which both discount this cost. So I think this is probably a reasonable card, probably like a C. Um, we don't know how Proliferate is going to be good in red yet, but I have some ideas. I have some ideas. Bullshock Splitter, 4 mana, 4 Mirrodin. Put creature gets +2/+3. Um, okay, so it's a 4 mana 4/2 that leaves behind a token when you like bounce it with like or sky um or Skyfisher. Um, okay, it's reasonable. I'm gonna give it a C. Um, it's not really anything special, but um, something might want all this interaction or all the like unique effects it has, where it's equipment, it makes a token, um, you can bounce it. Yeah, something might want that. I'll give it a C. I'll give it a C. Adaptive Spore Singer, 2 and a green, 2/2 vigilance. Target creature gets +2/+2 or proliferate. Ooh, interesting. All right, so green had some proliferate creatures already, specifically Bloom Hulk, which I like. It's a 4 mana 4/4 ETB proliferates. So as a 3 mana 2/2, it's a little bit weaker than Bloom Hulk, but I think having the proliferate on a 3 mana play that's reasonable is probably getting somewhere. It's probably getting somewhere. Um, in fact, I'd probably replace Bloomhulk with this. So I think this is probably playable. Probably like a C plus. Branch Branch Blight Stalker, 1 in green. 2. Ooh, okay. So Toxic 2 is interesting, but as a 2 mana play and no evasion, I can't see this being particularly good. Um, it is pretty lethal though, 3 power and Toxic 2. So yeah, Rendiverse Canopy, 2 in a green for a target. Okay, so it's permanent. Oh, so this is an upgraded. Was it Rend Wings, Destroy Wings, something like that? Um, yeah, yeah. This is sideboard C probably at best. Contagious Vorak, 2 in a green. And ETBs. Look at the top 4 cards. Deal a land. Put the rest on the bottom. If you didn't, proliferate. Ooh, interesting. So interesting. Yeah, right away I'm comparing these two. They're both 3 mana. They both proliferate. This one gets 3/3 and draws you a land, whereas this one has the vigilance or the buff ability. Yeah, yeah, interesting. I'm not sure which one will be best right now. I'm gonna give it the same C plus, I think. Um, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Pauper long legs, 1 in a green, reach spider, 1/3. Sacrifice it, proliferate. Interesting. Wow. So green has a lot of proliferates here, obviously. Um, I don't think a 1/3 spider is good enough in constructed. Um, it does have to proliferate, but I don't think this is Ichor Basilisk, 2 in a 1, or 2 in a green, sorry. Death Touch Toxic. Okay, so this is much more interesting. Um, I would have preferred this to be 2 mana cost instead of 3. But the Death Touch and Toxic one, you're gonna trade something for it. So it's probably reasonable. Um, I'll give it a C minus. I'll give it a C minus. Lattice Blade Mantis, 3 in a green. ETBs with 2 oil counters. Happening is okay. So this is the 4 mana 4/3 that attacks for 5 power. Interesting. Um, I don't think I like this, unfortunately. 4 mana creature with only 3 toughness is really hard because of Frostbite and the new Fiery Impulse, I think, from Explorer Anthology. Um, and then even Last Gas in black can kill this. So I don't think this is good enough. So I'll give it a D. Maze's Mantle, 2 and a green, flash enchant creature. Enchanted creature has toxic. That creature gains hexproof. +2/+2. Okay, so interesting. This is Snakeskin Veil, but gets +2/+2 instead. And it only protects toxic creatures. I feel like this is more of a draft card. I don't expect toxic to be very good in constructed. Um, just because there's not a depth of cards to choose from so far. But it's interesting. I think this is probably a draft card, so I'll give it a D. Constructed. 3 green green. When an ETBs gain 3 life, if you control a permanent with an oil, draw a card 3. Oh wow. Okay. So immediately I'm reminded of Owlbear, which is also 5 mana, 4/4 trample, draw a card. So I do like the life gain. I do like the stats, especially against red in particular, because that's the most common color you'll want 3 life from. Um, this is probably a sideboard C at best, though. So yeah, it could see play. It could see play. Plague Nurse, 3 and a green, Toxic 2, 3, 4. Each other creature you control with Toxic gains Toxic 1. Oh, wow, interesting. So this buffs all your Toxic 1s into Toxic 2s. for 3 mana. Activate only once each turn. Okay. Okay. That's very cool. Um, I think this will probably see play as a finisher in like a toxic deck. It's hard to imagine a toxic deck and constructed with just one set's worth of cards. So um, I'll put this on a back burner C. How about that? Back burner C. Um, Predation Steward, 1 and a green. 2/2 enters the battlefield, 2 oil counters. Target creature gets +2/+2. Activate only as a sorcery. Ooh, okay. I I don't think this is very good. This will probably be a card where in an oil counter matters deck. However, this ability is just too slow, and activate only as a sorcery is actually really bad because if someone's playing at instant speed, then they can just blow you out so badly. Resifying Cultivator, 1 mana, 1/2. Put an oil counter, remove an oil counter, and untap target land. Okay, interesting. So this sort of ramps you for turn 3. Um, Not the best, unfortunately. Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic. Um, so basically, this would go in an oil counter matters deck. Um, I'll put it as an back burner C plus because each turn getting an oil counter is probably good, but at the moment it's not good enough constructed. Ruthless Predation, 1 and a green. Um, Target creature you control gets +1/+2 and end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control. Okay, I think this is a functional reprint. There's a similar card I think that's also 1 in a sorcery fight. Um, this is all right for a fight spell. I do like that it busts your creature. Um, so at sorcery speed though, it feels really bad, especially in green, because you're already playing out your creatures at sorcery speed. So having to also fight with your removal at sorcery speed feels really bad experience. Um, so it's good. I would say this is probably a draft card. Sky Scythe and Gulfer, 5 and a green. Each trample 6/5 can't be blocked by creatures flying. Wow, that's really cool. Um, so we've seen can't be blocked by XXX, and creatures with flying is new. So I think this is actually pretty cool. Reach trample. Excuse me. Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. It's just 6 mana for creature. You really don't see it that often. Uh, Probably not playable in Thirsting Roots, 1 mana sorcery. Search your library for a basic land or proliferate. Oh, okay. So I feel this will be really good. Um, I have to assume the toxic deck is probably going to go multiple colors. So this will fix your colors while also being a proliferate in the late game. Um, so this is probably a back burner B. Yeah. Titanic Grove, 2 mana, +4/+4. Alright, so this is a functional reprint. I don't think anyone's played Titanic Grove. Tyranax Atrocity, 3 green, haste, toxic 3. 4. Oh man, Phyrexian Dinosaur. I love this card a lot. I don't think it's very good in constructed at the moment because of Tolarian Terror. Um, all the blue decks, you get a 1 mana 5/5 that blocks this perfectly, and unfortunately, that means this card will not see play in constructed. All right, so let's take a look at these skull bombs. It looks like this is a cycle color. 1 mana artifact, 1 sacrifice draw a card, 3 mana sacrifice get an effect. Activate as sorcery. All right, so +2/+2 gains flying, draw a card, bounce a creature, draw a card, return target creature graveyard to your hand. Put 2 oil counters, draw a card. Target creature you control gets +3, draw a card. Interesting. Okay. So, first of all, I have to say the blue one is probably neutral. Like it's not bad. I don't think it's particularly good. There's a lot of blue creatures or blue spells that 4 mana bounce something, draw a card. So notably, this only bounces target creature. However, it's an artifact permanent. Um, 4 mana, return a creature, draw a card. That's a little bit too much. However, specifically in the affinity deck, having these 1 mana artifact permanents you can put into play early on can be good, and then always want to uh, get back a Mirror Enforcer, get back a Gear Seeker Serpent. So this could be reasonable. The white one, +2/+2 gains flying. That's really hard. I don't think this is particularly good. Similarly with the green, +3/+3 on trample. It's even though historic has been in the past creature centric, it's slowly moving away from that, and I don't think like the one-off effects matter that much. The Furnace Skull Bomb, so the red version, put 2 oil counters. This is probably a back burner card, but we'll have to see. So as of right now, I think that probably the blue and the black ones are the best ones. I'll give this one a C plus, a C. This one's probably a back burner C plus. These two I think are D's. The D's. Dune Mover, 2 mana, toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search the library for a basic land card. Deal it, put it on top. All right, so I don't like this. However, it is like an upgrade with toxic 1. I think functional reprint like Strixhaven. Yeah, it's all right, but not putting the land into your hand really bad. Mere Custodian 3 enters the battlefield, scry 2. Your opponent may scry 1. Oh, each opponent may scry 1. Okay. Ooh, this is just a draft common. It's not anything good. Mere Kinsmith, 4 mana, 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a mirror card. Oh, interesting. So this is similar to the 4 mana 1/3 defender from last set or a couple sets ago, where it searched the library for a defender. As of right now, I think the only good mirror is like Mirror Enforcer in the affinity deck. So you know what? This will probably see play in the affinity deck. 4 mana is a bit steep, but you can draw a card, draw another creature with it. I think that's probably reasonable in the affinity deck. Because without Galvanic Blast in Historic or Explorer, you do have to attack with your creatures. Usually it's like Gear Seeker Serpent getting unblockable, finishing the game. So I think this is probably reasonable. I'll give it a B minus. A B minus. Phyrexian Atlas, 3 mana, add 1 mana of any color. Corrupted. Ooh, each opponent also loses 1 life. Interesting. Alright, so it's a mana rock for 3 mana, which is usually too slow. However, this effect of draining your opponent, well, making your opponent lose 1 life, it's hard to evaluate at the moment, but I have a feeling that it's probably not good. If you're applying poison counters, you want to try and go for 10. And then if you're just playing a fair poison counter game with just applying 3 counters, and then your opponent probably doesn't care about losing life. Maybe I feel like all these effects are just too weak individually, and they don't really come together to anything special. Unlike like Scrapwork Mutt, where all the effects for Scrapwork Mutt is really relatively weak, but it all comes together into one card. It becomes really good. So I don't think this is good, unfortunately. Prophetic Prism 2, draw a card, ETBs, and then you filter your mana. This is a reprint. It's really good. I'm sure you'll see this in play. So let's take a look at these lands. Spheres, ETB's tapped, but you can sacrifice it to draw a card. Yeah, I think these are really good. These are a great way to prevent flooding. I have to assume these will probably see a lot of play. Terramorphic Expanse. All right, so this is Evolving Wilds. Copies 5 to 8. It's hard to play Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse at the moment because there's the tri-lands from New Capenna that basically are the same, but maybe in a landfall deck. And it looks like I've messed up and I should have started with white first. Let me just make sure. Yeah, there are a couple red cards here. So I'll do those at the end. Let's go to white. Let's move on to white. Basilica Shepherd, 3 and a white 3/3 flying. When it ETBs, creates 2/1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might with tokens with Toxic 1. I like this card a lot. I think this is probably playable for sure. Even though it's a 5 mana 3/3 flyer, it gives you 2 tokens, and then presumably you're going to be blanking this or just reviving it from the graveyard with Late to Dinner. And going wide and having a real clock with Toxic 1 as compared to 1/1 regular tokens attacking for 20 life, I think this is probably a real card. So I'm going to give this a B. Definitely a B. Charge of the Mites, 2 and a white. Deals damage equal to the number of create 2. Okay, interesting. So this is a removal or go wide. I think this is probably reasonable. Having conditional removal or add more creatures to your board is probably pretty good. 3 mana is a little bit steep, understandably. However, I think this is probably reasonable. So I'll give this a C+. I'll give this a constructed C+ for sure. Complete Devotion, 1 and a white. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn if that creature has toxic. Oh, interesting. Interesting. It had some really great flavor. I do like a pump spell that draws a card, so I have to assume this is probably like a C. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure it'll be the pump spell of choice, but it could be. It could be. Crawling Course, 1 mana, 1/1, toxic 1. When it dies, create white creature. Okay, so this is really cool. I like this a lot. I have to assume this is going to be like a C plus. There's a lot of these 1 mana white creatures that when it dies, it leaves behind something. So this is really cool. Duelist of Deep Faith, 1 and a white, toxic 1. As long as it's your turn, first strike, 2/2. Okay, I like this because of first strike. With toxic, you're never going to want to block very much, anyways, because it's not like venom or whatever or poison where it doesn't do anything against other creatures. So I like this. This is probably a reasonable 2 mana card in your toxic deck. Let's say C plus. Yeah, probably a C plus. Flensing Raptor, 2 and a white, flying toxic 2. When it ETBs another creature, toxic gets +1. Okay, nice. Yeah, probably pretty good. It has evasion. It gives another toxic creature evasion when it ETBs. So I do like this. This is probably a C plus as well. Yeah, this is probably a C plus as well. Gold Warden's Helm, 2 and a white for Mirrodin, 2/2. Equip creature gets +0/+1 equip. Okay, this is 3 mana. So I like this more than the red one because it's just cheaper, and you still get the 2/2 token. So it's also notably white, which is the core Skyfisher color. So it fits right in. Um, you know, I'm not sure how good making 2/2 tokens will be. I have the feeling it won't be good enough. So this is probably a C minus. Incisor Glider, 1 and a white, flying 1/3. Attacks creatures you control get +1/+1. Fair. All right, so that's really interesting. This wants you to inflict 3 poison counters and then kill with regular damage. I, man, I feel like this will be really good in regular draft, but I have to assume in constructed this is just a little bit weak. I do like the rally effect. It's really, really good. Huh. This is hard. I'm gonna give this a B minus. I'm gonna give this a B minus. I have a feeling this will probably see play. Some people will brew it, I'm sure, because it's a really strong effect. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a B minus. I have a brew for this already. Because it's an artifact creature, but I will keep that in my back burner for now. I'm gonna give this a B minus. I'm gonna give this Indoctrination Attendant, 3 and a white, toxic 1/3/4. When it ETBs, you may return another permanent. If you do, create a Phyrexian. All right, so this is Core Skyfisher upgraded, but it's not as good because it's 4 mana. I like the toxic. I like the fact that it makes it toxic. 3/4 is a reasonable stat line for 4 mana. We've seen a lot of 4 mana 3/4s with this ETB bounce effect recently, so the Magic Design team seems to be liking this. Yeah, I think this one is probably the best one. Most of the others, they like what is it? I think it's the black one. If there's an artifact and enchantment, you could draw a card. Um, I like this one a little bit better because it gets more creatures on board. Which when you're bouncing your own things, you want like the tempo. Um, so I do like this one a little bit better. I'll give this a C plus. I'll give this a C plus. Leonin Lightbringer, 2 and a white, 3/2 Ward 2. Songs to this equip gets +1/+1. Ooh, interesting. So some equip synergies here. Right now, I don't think there are very many good equipments. Bone Splitter is one. Mantle of Tides has been played around with. Um, yeah, Ward 2 is good though. So I think this is probably a reasonable card. Um, we'll have to see if equipments can get in there. So let's say you equip a Bone Splitter onto it, right? It's a 4/3 and then becomes a 6/3. Um, it's still the toughness is a little bit hard to play. So yeah, I could see this being played, but I think it's just a little bit too weak. I'll give this a C, a constructed C. Mandible Justicar, 1 and a white, 2/1 lifelink. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield, Mandible gets +1/+1. Wow, this is probably really good. It's very easy to put artifacts into play, like just for example, putting a couple blood tokens, putting a couple treasure tokens. So this can grow pretty big, and then just swing for a lifelink. Um, yeah. As a 2 mana 2/1, it gets a little bit downgraded. Um, but then again, a 1 mana 2/1 lifelink would probably be too good. Um, I'm gonna give this a C plus. I'm gonna give this a C plus because this is a reasonable creature. It's an artifact creature, notably. Um, it's probably reasonable. C plus for sure. Miran Bardiche, 4 and a white for Mirrodin, +2/+. Okay, I don't think this is very good. It's just too expensive. And then a 4/3 for 5 mana with vigilance is nothing. Um, play the other one because it's cheaper. Orthodoxy Enforcer, 3 and a white, 2/4 vigilance, +2/+0 as long as you get 2. Okay, so even white gets 4/4 for 4 creatures nowadays, huh? um, yeah, this is probably reasonable in draft. I don't expect it's particularly good in constructed. Um, like 4/4 unfortunately has to do something because of Valerian Terror, and um, this really doesn't do anything against the black decks. So this is probably not good at all, unfortunately. Planar Disruption, 1 and a white, enchant artifact creature, can't block, attack or block, and its artifact abilities. Okay, this is another reasonable upgraded pacifism. I think the current pacifism of choice is in historic, so this is pretty good for explorer. The historic one removes all abilities, so that's better than this one. But I think this is probably the best one in explorer now. I'll have to double check. Um, yeah, the one in historic removes all abilities. It's better than the activated abilities can't be activated because of triggered abilities like Soul Warden. Sinew Dancer, 1 mana, 1/1, 4 to tap. If it's corrupted, tap for 1. Okay, interesting. I think this is more of a draft card. The creatures that you spend mana, tap it to tap a creature, um, they're usually good for draft, but not very good in constructed because most decks don't have to interact by blocking. And if you do, it's usually something with like a trick or like trample. So these cards usually aren't good in constructed, so I'm gonna give this a draft grade. This is probably really good in draft though because there's gonna be a lot of attacking with toxic creatures. Yeah. Vanish into Eternity, 2 and a white. The spell costs 3 more to cast if it targets a creature. Exile target non. Okay, interesting. So it's 6 mana remove a creature or 3 mana catch all. Yeah, I like this. In historic there's angelic destruction, something like that. It's 3 mana, sacrifice something, exile target non-land permanent. So I have to assume the guaranteed 3 mana creature removal is probably good, even though you have to sacrifice something. You can usually sacrifice a land. But this is probably good in Explorer for sure. Zealot's Conviction, 1 mana flash, enchant creature, +1/+1. As long as the opponent controls no more poison, gets an additional +1/+0 and has first strike. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Wow, so this is a pretty good trick in Toxic. 2/1 first strike for 1 mana. Wow, that's probably pretty good in Toxic, yeah. I'm gonna give this a C plus. Like, I think this is definitely a playable trick, combat trick. Yeah, yeah, very interesting. A C plus for sure. All right, let's move on to blue. Aspirant's Ascent, 1 blue until end of or blue until end of turn. Target creature gets +1/+3 flying and toxic 1. Okay, okay. I like the evasion and toxic 1. Presumably you're going to be using this in draft to get a toxic 1 counter, and then you proliferate it up to 3 for corrupted. Okay. I think this is more of a draft than a constructed card. Bring the Ending, 1 in a blue, counter target spell unless its controller plays 2. Counter that spell instead if its control has 3 or more poison counter. Wow, this is really cool counter spell. So this is a what is it? I forget the name. 2 mana counter, pay 2. What, mana leak? Not mana leak. But the corrupted text is just a straight counterspell. Wow, that's really good for your toxic deck. Um, so earlier in the video, I said there probably aren't enough cards to make a toxic deck, but apparently there might be. There might be. Um, I'm gonna give this a C plus. Yeah, it's maybe playable. Actually, well, all right. So I say it's maybe playable because I'm not sure if blue is the color you want, but it's definitely strong. It's definitely strong. Chrome Prowler, 2 and a blue, 3/2 flash when an ETB is tap target creature and opponent controls. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is like the cats, the frost cats in past sets. However, it has flash and it's 3 power, and it doesn't freeze them. It doesn't make them unable to untap for winter. I like this a lot. I like this a lot. 3 mana for a tap in constructed can be played, especially since this has 3 power. So, and it's flash. Just having a flash artifact creature is pretty good. Um, this is probably a C plus. Yeah, constructed C plus. Escaped Experiment, 1 and a blue. Artifact creature, 2/1. When it attacks, target creature and opponent controls get -X, -0. Oh, interesting. Wow. So it's like an aggressive blue deck creature. Um, I don't really see it. Okay, okay. I mean, it can break like board stalls. Let your creatures attack in the affinity deck. So I do like it. I do like it. I'm gonna say this is probably a C minus. The ability is just a little bit too niche. Experimental Augury, 1 in a blue, instant. Look at the top 3, pick 1, proliferate. All right, so this is anticipate with proliferate attached to it. I like this a lot. This card and the counter spell is probably gonna be the picks for the blue toxic deck. Um, Anticipate, cycle your card with some choice. That's just always good. Proliferate is a nice bonus. So this card is definitely a B, I think. Constructed B for sure. Eye of Malcator, 2 and a blue, ETBs scry 2. Whenever another artifact and ETBs, it becomes a 4/4 Phyrexian Eye artifact creature. Oh, interesting. Wow. So even blue gets 4/4s nowadays. um wow, wow. Okay, so it scries 2. Interesting, very interesting. Um I don't think this card is good enough for constructed. Um I do like the effect, and the 4/4 is probably good enough for most things. I just don't think it'll fit into a blue deck at the moment. Because presumably you're going to be playing Tolarian Terror in your blue deck. Um, but if you're not, you're going for the 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 affinity decks. And this could 3 mana fits into the affinity deck. It fills a nice slot. So it could probably fit into affinity. I just don't think it's the best card in affinity. Um, so I'll give this a C plus. I'll give this a C plus. Gitaxian Anatomus, 3 and a blue, 2/5. When it ETBs, you may tap. If you do, proliferate. Interesting. So instead of blocking for the first turn, you can proliferate, and then you get a 2/5 blocker. Yeah. This is probably reasonable. The 5 toughness just unfortunately um doesn't block Tolarian Terror, but it does block like Mirror Enforcer. It does block Owlbear. Um, so I think this is probably reasonable. It blocks Kiln Fiend normally, because well with 1 trigger. Um, so yeah, this is probably reasonable in your blue proliferate deck. I'll give this a C minus, C minus or a C. Gitaxian Raptor, 2 and a blue, 1/4 flying. ETBs with 3 oils, counters, remove an oil counter, +1, -1. Okay. Um, Interesting. So it's basically oil permanent. The body is pretty meh. We haven't seen really any oil counter payoffs yet, so I'll give this like a back burner C. Back burner C minus. Listener Seer, 1 mana 03, ETBs with 3 oil counters, remove an oil counter, scry 1. Alright, so this is much better because it only costs 1 mana. I'll give this a back burner C+. Back burner C+. Ichor Synthesizer, 1 in a blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter, 1/3. As long as 4 more oil counters, it's +2/+0 and can't be blocked. Wow, wow, wow. So this sort of grows like a, what is it, Delver almost. It's a much weaker Delver for sure. However, you get can't be blocked instead of flying. Wow, okay. It's a wizard, which is a reasonable typing. It's something. It's something. I'm gonna give this a B minus. I think a B minus is reasonable. Yeah, C plus. All right, C plus. C plus. Malcator's Watcher, 1 in a blue. Flying Vigilance. When it dies, draw a card. 1. Interesting. Usually blue gets to draw right away, but when it dies, draw a card is reasonable. And it's an artifact creature with flying. So this is probably pretty good. This is probably pretty good. This is a case where all the effects are pretty medium, but when it all comes together, this is probably better than it looks. So I'm gonna give this a B minus. Yeah, this is probably a B minus. Meldweld Curator, 3 in a blue, 3/4. When an ETBs, put up to 1 target instant sorcery on top of your library. Okay, fixing your draw for your next turn is pretty good. I think it's just a little bit too expensive, even though it's a 4 mana 3/4. Yeah, it's just a little bit too expensive. I'll give this like a C. It's reasonable in draft. And constructed, maybe. Meldweld Strider, 4 in a blue. Vigilance 5/5. ETBs with an oil, it becomes an artifact creature. Wow, okay, so you get to crew it right away, but presumably you're going to proliferate it to just get a 5/5. 5 mana, 5/5 vigilance for a vehicle. It's pretty medium. I'll give this a C. I'll give this a C. Mesmerizing Dose, blue 1. Tap target, tap enchanted creature, then proliferate. Okay, so this is a blue removal spell with proliferate attached. I like the fact that it has proliferate attached to it. A lot of the blue removal spells don't really do anything past that, so this is probably reasonable. It's probably reasonable. I'm gonna give this a back burner C plus. Prologue to Phyrexis. Phyrexis. 1 in a blue. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Draw a card. All right, so this is probably pretty good. 2 mana to cycle is reasonable with the poison counter. That's probably really good. I mean, just cycling 4 of them, they already have 4 poison. That's pretty good. I think. Let's give this a B minus. A B minus. You're gonna have to do something with the tempo hit, and blue isn't the best color for that, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. A B minus. A B minus. Quicksilver Fisher, 3 blue. Flying, when ETBs, draw a card, then discards a card. 4/3 flyer. So this is a 5 mana 4/3 flying. That loots you a card. This is probably gonna be really good in draft. I can't imagine it being very good in constructed. Vivisurgent's Insight, 3 blue, draw 3 cards, proliferate. Wow. So this is a new card. I think I don't think there are very many draw 3s in Explorer Pauper. There's the Golden City one with Ascend, Historic. Wait, I think that one's in Explorer too. Okay, so You're basically paying 2 extra mana for the proliferate. Maybe. I'll give this a C. Yeah. 5 mana just to draw cards feels pretty bad, I think. Usually for 4 mana you can scry 2 and draw 2, and that's usually similar, but the proliferate might be something. You probably don't want such an expensive card in your proliferate deck though, but we'll see. Let's move on to black. Annihilating Glare, 1 black. As additional cost, pay 4 or sacrifice an artifact or creature. Destroy target creature. Okay, so this is really good, I think. 1 mana, kill a creature, sacrifice an artifact. Maybe your Ichor Wellspring. This is probably really good. Let's give this a B. Let's give this a B. Yeah. Anoint with Affliction, 1 and a black. Exile target creature if it has mana value 3 or less. Corrupted, exile that creature instead. Wow, this is insane. This is probably going to be the sideboard removal of choice for a long time, right? You can even main deck a couple copies. This basically is good against every single aggro deck. Let me think. You're basically just missing like Muldrifters and like Cyril's Packmates. You missed Tolarian Terror, unfortunately, but with Corrupted, anything is possible. So wow, this is such a good payoff for Corrupted. This is definitely a B plus removal. Maybe even A minus. A minus possibly, yeah. Yeah. Light Belly Rat, 1 and a black, toxic 1. When it dies, proliferate 2/2. Oh wow. Um Pretty good, pretty good. I like the proliferate trigger on death, but because that makes up for the fact that it doesn't really have evasion, and um yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Let's say C minus, C. Yeah. It's reasonable but pretty medium. Bone Picker Scourge, 2 and a black, flying corrupted. As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, Bone Picker, Death Touch, and Lifelink. So 3 mana 2/2 flyer, it's pretty bad. Um, and the corrupted effect with Death Touch and Lifelink, I don't think that's good enough to save this. I'm gonna say it's a C. It's a C. Cruel Grimnarch, 5 and a black, Death Touch 5/5. ETBs, each opponent discards a card. If they can't, you gain 4 life. Oh man. 6 mana for a 5/5 Death Touch, but they discard a card. It's very hard to play 6 mana discard spells because by that time they'll either have like a full grip or they're already played out everything. So I think this is probably a C minus. Cutthroat Centurion, 2 and a black. Sacrifice another artifact or creature. It's +2/+2. Activate only 1. Ooh, okay. So this is a free sacrifice, but you can only ping it once a turn. Um, this is probably pretty good. This is probably pretty good. Um, Combined with the Gitaxian Infiltrator from last set, it just you're gonna have some really big creatures. Notably, you can activate this at instant speed, although only once a turn. Yeah. I'm gonna give this a C plus or B minus. Let's give this a B minus. This a B. Duress. This is a reprint. This is still a good sideboard card. Yeah, it's Duress. B minus, C plus. Yeah. Fleshless Gladiator, 1 and a black, 2/2. Corrupted, 2 and a black. Return from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You lose 1 life. Wow, so this basically regenerates for 3 mana, I think. Um, yeah, this is pretty good, I think. Right now, I don't see very good toxic cards in black, but you pair it with another color, um, this could be pretty good. Uh, Basically just an infinite blocker for 3 mana. let's give this a C plus. Yeah, it's a little expensive, but probably a reasonable effect. Gulping Scap Trap, 4 and a black, 4/4. Enters the battlefield or dies, proliferate. Wow. Okay, so that I like this. Because it's 2 proliferate triggers in one card. Being 5 mana costs a little bit too much, so I'm gonna give this a C plus. You know, it's a good effect. I think it just costs a little bit too much. Infectious Inquiry, 2 and a black. You draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. Each opponent gets a poison counter. All right, so this is where black gets your poison counters from. This is probably really good. Compared to the blue one, you draw 2 cards instead of 1, so it's card advantage, but you do lose 2 life. I mean, it's still pretty good, I think. So this is probably a B minus. Yes, yeah, probably a B minus. Offer immortality, 1 in black. Target creature gains death touch and indestructible. End of turn. Okay. Yeah, this is all right. It's another death touch like combat trick for uh your delirium uh deck, but yeah, gouge sell it deck. It's all right. It's all right. Let's say actually it costs 2 mana. It's probably not good enough. Blade Brand draws you a card, so it does give indestructible though to protect your gouge sell it. So yeah, let's say C. Pestilent Siphoner, 1 in the black, 1/1 flying, toxic 1. All right, so this is reasonable because it has flying. Yeah, yeah, this is probably a C plus. Shield Dread's Head Cleaver, 3 and a black, 2/4 menace, toxic 2. Wow. I like this. With menace, this makes it much better. Presumably you're gonna combine it with offer immortality, so you with death touch, so you can kill 2 creatures. Yeah, yeah, it's reasonable. A 4 mana creature for 2/4 though is a little bit expensive, so I'm gonna say it's just a C. It's a C. Definitely reasonable. Pretty medium. Staying Hive Master, 2 and a black, 3/2 toxic 1. When it dies, create a 1/1. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay. I like it. I like it. It's not as good as the white one because 1 mana 1/1 with toxic 1 is much better than mana 3/2. Um, but it's in black. I'll give it a C minus. I'll give it a C minus. Testament Bearer, 3 and a black. When it dies, look at the top 3 cards of the library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your. Interesting. It's a 4/1 for 4. Oh wow. So I mean it draws you a card after it dies. And it only has 1 toughness, so you can trade up. Well, you can trade it for anything. Um I think 4 mana is too much, even though it is a 4/1. 4 power gets shut down by Telerian Terror. Yeah, yeah. Uh, let's give this a C minus. C minus. Vraska's Fall, 2 and a black. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. Okay, so this is pretty good too. 3 mana for sacrifice effect, and your opponent gets a poison counter. Definitely very reasonable. Let's give this a C plus. Not as good as the draw card one, but definitely a C plus. Whisper of the Dross, 1 black. Target creature gets -1/-1 proliferate. Okay. -1/-1 is pretty weak, unfortunately. So even with the proliferate effect, you're just like almost never killing anything. And against the decks with a lot of 1/1s, you probably want Suffocating Fumes to wipe their board instead. So I think this is probably a pretty weak proliferate. let's say C plus. Yeah, probably a C plus. No, no, that's probably C minus. C minus. It's probably a C minus. All right, let's finish off the last couple red cards. And Axiom Engraver, one in a red, one ETBs with two oil counters. Remove an oil counter, discard a card, draw a card. Okay. This is a pretty weak effect, I think, and only being able to cast it 2 times. This is probably a C minus. C minus. Barbed Batterfist, one in a red, 4 Mirrodin. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Okay, I like this a lot. 2 mana, 3/1, but you can bounce it to get a 2/2. I think this is probably best one so far because it's cheap. Yeah, yeah. This one's probably B minus, C plus. Yeah. Blade Draft Aspirant, 2 in a red, Menace 2/3. Equipment spells you cast cost 1 less. Activated abilities control that target cost 1 less. Okay. Unfortunately, this doesn't have ward. I would have liked to see it have ward. As a 3 mana 2/3, that's really hard to play against the 1 mana removals and 2. So I would have liked to see this have like ward 1, but it's a cool effect. I think it's just not good enough. You'd rather have like a resilient creature or a ward creature or a hex. So let's give this a C. Let's give this a C. Blazing Crescendo, 1 in a red. Target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn. Exile the top card until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. Alright, so this is like Reckless Impulse, but it's a combat trick instead. I like it. I don't think Kiln Fiend deck has room for it. They could fit it in, but being 2 mana for a combat trick, you're basically trading your explosiveness for a little bit of card draw. I don't think Kiln Fiend wants that, especially not with this medium medium effect. So Reckless Impulse is much better because you can't get blown out, whereas this one can, and this one only gives you 1 card, whereas Reckless Impulse gives you 2. I don't think the combination is good in this case specifically because when you're playing those kinds of decks, you want to be playing a lot of 1 mana tricks to get a bunch of triggers off your Kiln Fiends. But this could be useful somewhere. So I'm gonna give this a C plus. I'm gonna give this a C plus. Chimney Rabble, 3 in a red, 3/3 haste. When ETBs create a 1/1 red Phyrexian goblin. Ooh, okay. So it's a 4 mana goblin with 3/3 haste. Wow. Yeah, yeah. So this is better than other 4 mana 3/3s because it has haste and it makes a 1/1. So I'm gonna give this a C plus. I could see this being played somewhere. Forge Hammer Centurion, 2 in a red, 3/2. Whenever another creature or artifact you controls is put into a graveyard, put an oil counter. Whenever it attacks, you may remove 2 oil counters. When you do, target creature get blocked this turn. That's interesting. This effect is really cool. You can get infinite oil counters with the Mogwarts combo, Goblin combo. But the second ability, remove 2 oil counters, the target creature can't block. That's pretty medium. It's a 3 mana 3/2 too. At the moment there's no oil counter like synergies, so I don't think this is played. Maybe this is a backburner C mine. Free from flesh, red. Target creature gets +2/+2. Put 2 oil counters. Okay, so it's a 1 mana +2/+2 with 2 oil counters. At the moment, oil counter seems pretty weak. So this is probably okay, but I think there's Infuriate with +3/+2. Maybe as like a 5th copy. Furnace Strider, 4 and a red. Furnace Strider enters the battlefield with oil counters on oil counter. Target creature taste. Okay, so this is probably the best oil counter payoff so far. Giving your creatures haste is good, especially in red, where you really want to beat damage. 5 mana for 4/5. Unfortunately, this stat line is just so unfortunate. Um, I it's just too much. It just costs too much mana. Let's give this a C. Hazardous Blast, 3 and a red, deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent can't block this turn. Oh, okay, so this is a functional reprint, right? I like this card a lot. Galvanic Wave is the card. 4 damage or 4 mana. Your creatures your opponents control can't block this turn is the relevant text. You just build up. So my Gruul Goblin deck is basically built to put a lot of creatures on your board, build up a board, and then you can attack with this card, Cosmotronic Wave. That's it. You where your opponents can't block, and then you finish off with Royal Eruption to the face. Yeah, I like this card. It's a sideboard card. I'm gonna give this a C plus. It should probably be a sideboard C, but I'm gonna give it a C plus just because it's Cosmotronic Wave. All right, thank you for watching. I think that's it. Yeah, I messed up and I did the second page first on accident. I have to say, white looks really cool. Blue looks really cool, and black. I mean, I obviously I think Annoyed with Affliction, and Annihilating Glare are probably the 2 best cards. Annoyed with Affliction is probably A minus material. Annihilating Glare is pretty good. Yeah, probably black got the most good cards. Infectious Inquiry is probably pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, I think black, then probably white and blue following up, and then red and green coming behind. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope everyone comes plays more Historic Pauper. Jeez.